Hello and welcome again to the Skillwork Forum, where we gather and talk about topics and issues surrounding the skilled labor shortage in America. My name is Tim. I'm joined with my partner Brett, as always, here from Skillwork. And we've been in this series that we started a couple of podcast episodes ago called The Cost of Not Changing. And it revolves around some of the costs that companies deal with, a lot of the clients that we deal with actually, in trying to resolve their skilled worker shortage. So the costs that you may incur as you're going through these skilled worker shortages, and some you're probably very much aware of, maybe others not so much. I think today's topic is one that you may be aware of intuitively, but maybe just haven't conceptualized it, and hopefully this will help you out a little bit. So this topic is called the tyranny of the urgent, and that's not a phrase that's original for me. We'll talk about a little bit where we got that from, but it's definitely something that all of us as business leaders and owners deal with every day. Actually, almost every one of us as individuals deal with this challenge every day. And it's that idea of being swamped, too busy, you're fighting fires, and it really prevents you from working on important issues. I don't know how many people I talk to and say, how are things going? Oh, I'm so busy. I got this going on, I got that going on. And it's almost like life is like on a hamster wheel for them all the time. I think you maybe have some stories that we experience with some of our clients.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, this is an easy one, for probably a lot of people to personalize. I know for me, back, if I can relate it to myself, we can relate it to almost every client that we have, that you can find yourself so caught up in the urgent. I literally could remember, I ran a food manufacturing company for many years, and I would find myself at times in the busyness of everything saying, I don't really have time to deal with that. And that's a phrase that as a business leader that I think that's when you better perk up and be self-aware of where are we at in this season? Are we in this what we call the tyranny of the urgent? Because a lot of times what that's really telling us and what our clients tell us is that, we've got a client I was just dealing with this morning, or no, I shouldn't say dealing with, that sounded wrong. That
you had the opportunity to engage.
Yes, there you go. and they needed to get, we had some clients in their pipeline they need to be looking at, and they need this talent, really bad. And they were coming off a really crazy week last week, and their response to one of our client managers was, "We know it, but we're not going to get to it today," which is a perfect example of we're too busy to do what we need to do to help ourselves. Right. And so I do think it's a real situation you need to be aware of, because typically those things that you don't have time to deal with, those are the things that are going to keep your business on track. They're going to be your long-term planning. They're going to get you to a healthier place in your business, in your culture, and they're really the things that are going to allow you, to focus on your long-term goals. So as business leaders, I think we're all going to find ourselves there. Right. So the danger is we naturally think of busy as productive. We all do. So, but unless you're focused daily on the items that will impact, your big goals, then the risk is this fire that you're managing will eventually consume you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, here we are, fourth quarter of this year, as we're recording this today. Many companies start in the back of their mind thinking about the next year. And, all of us this year, we're working our 2020 goals and our plan. And next year, you'll start doing the 21 planning. A lot of people do that, but sometimes we just fail to execute on the things that we took time to put out there because we're so busy fighting the fires of the day, or as was coined by actually Charles Hummel, this concept of tyranny of the urgent. Matter of fact, this is back in the 60s that Charles Hummel published this little bitty booklet that became a business classic. As a matter of fact, many people even today refer to this little booklet called The Tyranny of the Urgent. In that booklet, Hummel argued that there is a regular tension, and it's a good tension really, between things that are urgent and the things that are important. And far too often, the problem comes in that things that are urgent, in other words, I got to do it right now, the things that are urgent wins that battle. So one of the quotes, and there are many from this booklet, he said, your greatest danger is letting the urgent things crowd out the important things. So in the business world, that means the demands of your boss, your customers, we just talked about that, the dissatisfied customers, that's a real thing. Internal pressure, like understaffed, and your team is understaffed and you want to take care of them. So you are fighting those fires every day, and those things take priority over things that actually have far greater importance. And Brett, you and I were talking about how this applies in our spiritual walk too, in our faith. And there's a great parable talking about the parable of the sowers. Where the seeds are being tossed out, and some of them grow up, and others of them don't. And one of the seeds that never takes root and really grows up, it says it's choked out by the cares of the world. That's really what we're talking about here. When things get choked out by the cares of things that are urgent but not important, that means the things that really need to have your attention aren't getting looked at. So
No, that's for sure. And we're naturally wired. Most humans, most of us are wired. We're task oriented. A lot of people, they love checklists. They love checking off the checklist.
Me.
And it makes us feel very accomplished. And there's really nothing. Accomplishing things is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's when, in this context, when those tasks and those, take email for example. Email is a great example of being very task oriented. Years ago I quit having my email and my text. It doesn't alert me anymore because it's a natural reaction. You look at it every single time and type thing. And so that's kind of what we're talking. It's almost, sometimes we talk about being in a season versus a lifestyle. And so if you're in a season and things are busy and you've got to get this accomplished, that's okay. But if this is kind of become your norm and you're not addressing the big issues, which in our situation, we're referring to the shortage of skilled talent and skilled trades and those types of things, in the planning process to address that, it's time to take a look at that.
Right, exactly. So what are some other examples in this space that we're talking about that might rob your time and attention? Well, front and center, Brett really mentioned it, is if you're chasing after gaps in your staffing, if that's something that's got, a lot of your time and attention, and that's not specifically your job, like you're not a recruiter or an HR space, but you're a business leader, but you're spending a lot of your time chasing gaps because of turnover, poor morale, disciplinary issues, you may be spending a lot of time doing the urgent things, so that's urgent. But is it really as important as other things you should be doing? What about, we've got a lot of clients that have manufacturing equipment. We hear them all the time that, hey, we've got this stuff. We're constantly having to fix this gear over and over again because they haven't taken the time to look at, what is our capital expenditure plan? Maybe we need to get some new equipment in here. So that's an example of something that's urgent, maybe not important. Taking on, as you mentioned, the email, more and more of these routine tasks, just because you don't have the people or you haven't taken the time to train somebody up to be able to do that for you. So you find yourself doing these things that are necessary, but really probably not at the top of your list are going to help you achieve your strategic objectives. Emails, meetings, taking that phone call. I know people that, you're having a meeting with or meal with, the phone rings, the email comes in, a text immediately. They drop what they're doing and respond to that all the time. And, is it really that important for them to do it? Mm-hmm. It's this sense of the tyranny of the urgent taking place in their life.
Yeah, no, for sure. We, oftentimes in these podcasts, Tim, we refer to, marriage ministry, which is something we're both passionate about, marriages in general. I just thought about when you said, that, we observe it because of what we do in that world is that, but when you're out at that restaurant and you see that couple that haven't said 3 words to each other because they're both looking at their phones. And so, that's a good example of you might need to, there might be something more important that you need to focus your time on.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so back in the business side of that, it's the same thing. It's, what could you be doing? What are those important things? And so, I personally for quite some time, years, have utilized a product. There's many of them out there. I use the Full Focus Planner, and the whole concept really behind that is to have your three things a day that you do, and the whole concept, and then 3 big ideas per week. And the idea is that all of these should be leading towards your annual goals or your quarterly goals, and that's kind of the point of you need to have some type of system, that keeps you from getting into this rut of the tyranny of the urgent.
Right.
And from that, if one of those is, hey, we need to have a better financial plan, or we need to figure out how we're going to find the talent we need to succeed at what we've set out there. You'll see it a lot of times, just simply a goal that is written down is 50% more likely, to happen than if you don't even take the time to have a plan. So.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big, both of us were big fans of setting goals, tracking them. And you talked earlier about people that write out lists and, get energized out of getting things done. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing to have. It's just what's on your list, I guess, and what are you getting done that day? You could be really busy, but you may not be making a lot of headway. You're kind of on a treadmill, so to speak. So talking about continuing to look at this from the perspective of, other literature that we've looked at, and both you and I, we're kind of fans of continual learning and looking at the latest and greatest leadership books. But there's some things out there that are, classics as well. I mean, we mentioned this other book, that Tyranny the Urgent, was from the 60s. There's another one out there, I think from the start, maybe in the 70s, called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I'm a big fan of that because essentially he looked at a spectrum of these people that were very, very effective in leadership, and all of them had these consistent traits that they shared. All of them had these 7 consistent traits, and one of them has to do with this tyranny of the urgent. It's doing things that are important, but not necessarily urgent. And anybody familiar with the book knows that he goes through it and explains it, with kind of a matrix, if you will. But if you think about everything in your life can be put in and ranked according to how important is it and how urgent is it. So think about that, a spectrum. It's important, not important, urgent, or not urgent. So if you think about your day's activities, where does stuff fall along that spectrum? So in this book, Covey would say that the least effective leaders, and I would say the least effective businesses, are those that spend their time on things that are urgent but not important. So you got to decide in your own business what's important. But if you're spending your time doing urgent things, fighting fires all day but not making headway, Covey would say you're doing things and spending time in the place that's probably the least effective as far as leadership. I guess I should back that up to say if you're doing stuff that is not important and not urgent, then you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast. But let's just assume you're doing urgent. Yeah, exactly. Cat videos we always talk about. So the second one then is you can be a somewhat effective leader if you spend most of your time on things that are urgent and important. So you're busy, constantly busy. Those are important things, but you really don't have time when you're busy to really think about those long-term strategic things. And Covey would say great businesses and leaders are those. And I think we have a pretty good balance with this. In our business here, I tend to be more of the tactical thinker. I oversee our operations because it's natural then. I'm thinking near term. My horizon's 30 days. Brett is more the strategic, long term, and together, we balance each other out. But Great business leaders spend the majority of their time on things that are important but not urgent. You have time to think about them. So this means that they're ahead of their challenges rather than in the middle of some sort of crisis. So where are you in that spectrum? Where would you fall? Where would you say, honestly, where do you fall in that?
Yeah, no, for sure. And so I think it's really important. I mean, like we said, growing as a leader, constantly, reading these types of things, it's really important because a lot of it becomes how satisfying is the work you're doing too. A lot of people who are caught up in this very busy cycle find their work to be eventually unsatisfying. Busy can be kind of fun for a little while, but at some point, it needs to have some stability to it. And so one of those things, many companies that we work with and that we talk to, consistently for the last several years, the number one item on CEOs of what it's going to take, what is your biggest concern of being able to achieve the goals you've set, is finding the talent that we need to achieve those goals. Yep. So obviously in our business, doing supplemental, skilled trade, staffing, is we would say, what is your strategy? Staffing shortages really doesn't need to be an urgent. A lot of companies are in complete scramble mode in how they're going to solve that because they haven't kind of set back and said, let's get a strategy of how we're going to solve our skilled trade talent shortage so that we can focus on our business. Usually the biggest issue with not having a strategy about things that are really important to your business is that it takes you away from working on your business.
Right.
And so we would obviously encourage you to, in this situation, if that is your issue, then to have a strategy, reach out to a company like ourselves at Skillwork and partner to put something together. That takes it from having a strategy to being, our hair's on fire. So,
yeah, I mean, we can do that. We can manage the urgent for you to enable you to focus on the important. If you think about that, if you find yourself spending the majority of your time putting out fires and busy, chances are you either haven't taken the time to develop the talent you need to take that over. And our business here, we're constantly looking at raising up people so that as we scale and grow, Lord willing, there will be people there able to take over the things that I'm doing today, so that we can continue to focus our attention on strategy moving forward. So really important topic. I encourage you to look at the book, Tyranny of the Urgent. It's short. It's a good read. If you find yourself every day going like, I just can't, I'm so busy I can't get to X, Y, or Z. It's not a good place to be in. For a season, we can all do that, and we all have done it. But there are times for the long-term health of your company, you need to spend time thinking about important things. So too often, we're so busy fighting fires that we fail to do that, focus on important strategic issues. And we'll just summarize some of the points that we went over today, just in closing.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, these are things that we've said, and just kind of like you said, to kind of recap. But that if you find yourself, and you will, because we all do as leaders, in that tyranny of the urgent, then you just need to be able to recognize that it's robbing us of incredible opportunities to really grow our businesses and stabilize our businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Brett, of that the opportunity cost of being so busy is huge, because you don't know what you miss because you're too busy to see it. You ever heard the stop and smell the roses? Mm-hmm. The roses are great things to take on board, and sometimes we miss those in life and in business. And this applies so much to our personal life as well. You get so busy that you don't spend time with your kids, or with your grandkids in my case, or doing things that that your heart is really called to do. And you don't want to find yourself in that place and end up someday with, gray hair and a gray beard, and you recognize you haven't spent time doing the important things of life. So take some time to think about all the activities in the week that take your time. Do a time budget. Figure out where it's all going. We all get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nobody gets more. It's the one equalizer for everybody. And figure out how you're using those, and maybe do some assessment.
Yep, absolutely. So, like you said, there's a lot of application, personally and in your business. In this case, if you've got staffing challenges with your skilled workers, those shortages, that's where we can help you. We want to help you, but you have to reach out in order to let us help you. So,
Yeah. And if you're too busy to call, you can just go to our website. The link is right there. Just click on it and we'll reach out to you. So, again, being busy is a good thing, but too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So maybe it's something that will impact you. And if it's so, particularly with the staffing shortage, reach out to us. We can help. If it's something more important than that, like some of these other issues, like time with your family or personal time or growing your faith, then I would just encourage you to assess that as well. Far more eternal consequences there than your staffing issues. So again, reach out to us at skillwork.com. We'd be glad, and actually we'd look forward to talking to you about any of these topics that we could help you out with. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.